Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're looking at something absolutely fascinating. We're diving into a high-stakes, real-world manual from the 11th century. Specifically, we're examining excerpts from the elder Dipankara's brief explanation of the Enlightenment path. And what makes this text so incredibly captivating is that it isn't just some abstract philosophical musing. It actually operates like a dramatic, highly specific guidebook. It outlines a method for reaching enlightenment that promises unbelievable speed and literal, real-world powers. But, and this is a massive but, it comes with some of the strictest, most severe guardrails imaginable. If you follow the rules perfectly, you get the ultimate prize. But if you crash through those guardrails, the consequences are completely disastrous. Honestly, you can think of it as the ultimate, highest-stakes spiritual terms and conditions ever written.
Okay, let's dive right into this roadmap. To really grasp Dipankara's manual, we're going to navigate through 5 distinct phases: meditating on emptiness, the secret mantra shortcut, the role of the guru, strict boundaries for celibates, and finally, the fruits of the path.
Starting right off with Section 1, meditating on emptiness, or setting our baseline. So, before we can even breathe a word about shortcuts or accelerated paths, Dipankara insists on a very specific starting point. You just can't jump straight into the advanced stuff. First, you have to establish a deeply grounded, logical understanding of reality itself. Stanza 58 lays it out perfectly. Once you are certain from the scriptures and logic that all phenomena have no arising and no nature, meditate without thoughts. This is the absolutely required foundation. And notice, it demands certainty from both scripture and logic. You aren't just blindly believing this. You have to rationally deduce that phenomena have no arising and no intrinsic nature. Only after you've locked in that baseline intellectual certainty are you instructed to drop the intellect entirely and meditate without thoughts.
So, how does building this foundation actually play out? Well, in stanza 59, Dipankara outlines a very linear, step-by-step progression. Step 1 is meditating on this reality, which he terms suchness. As you lock into that, you naturally move to Step 2, gaining warmth and hitting other progressive milestones. This climbs steadily up to Step 3, which is achieving a state called the truly joyous. And from there, Step 4 is Buddhahood itself. The text actually notes that once you hit that truly joyous state, it won't be long till Buddhahood. So this is the traditional, methodical process. It takes work, but it absolutely guarantees the result.
Now we hit Section 2, the secret mantra shortcut, which is a seriously powerful fast track. This is where the text completely shifts gears and the energy really ramps up. The methodical path we just talked about is great, but what if you want to get there faster? Dipankara introduces an alternative. Basically, heavy machinery for your spiritual journey. But to understand why anyone would take this shortcut, we need to know what's actually being promised in stanzas 60 and 61. The text talks about Siddhis. These are the 8 great accomplishments, or literal powers, gained along the path. Dipankara specifically mentions accomplishing the fine vase and so forth. So we aren't just talking about finding some quiet inner peace here. The text is literally promising the acquisition of incredible, tangible powers and abilities as part of this accelerated route.
And that brings us to the actual vehicle getting you there. The text refers to the secret mantra taught in the action, conduct, and other tantras. According to stanza 60, if your goal is to easily perfect the accumulations for enlightenment, you tap into the power of the secret mantra. This power lets you achieve activities, like pacifying and enriching, at just an incredibly accelerated rate. It is the ultimate fast track. Think of it as the 11th century equivalent of a massive, reality-bending life hack.
Moving right into Section 3, the role of the guru, and the strict prerequisites for all this speed.
Because, naturally, there is a catch. You can't just hop into a Formula One race car without a pro driving instructor, right? To drive this incredibly fast spiritual vehicle, you need a highly qualified master. And your relationship with this master, it isn't casual. It is absolute. Stanza 62 spells out the prerequisites clear as day. To even receive the necessary empowerment to practice this secret mantra, you must first please the Vajra master, the guru. How do you do that? Well, the text gives exact requirements. You have to provide dedicated service, make offerings of wealth, and, crucially, carry out all commands. It's a relationship built on total, unflinching submission to the instructor's expertise, which honestly makes total sense when the machinery you're operating is this powerful.
If you do this exactly right, stanza 63 details the massive payoff. When the guru is fully pleased and bestows that master empowerment upon you, a profound transformation takes place. The text literally states that your misdeeds will all be purified. It effectively wipes the slate clean and clears the entire runway for takeoff.
Because of that, you will then have the fortune to gain the Siddhis that we defined a minute ago. By pleasing the Guru, you successfully unlock the fast track. Which brings us to Section 4, Strict Boundaries for Celibates, or what I like to call the fatal crash.
This is where the tone of the entire text becomes deadly serious, because with great power comes incredibly rigid rules. This fast track is heavily guarded, and the text outlines emphatic prohibitions. If you cross these boundaries, you suffer what is basically a fatal spiritual crash. What's really fascinating here is the sharp contrast drawn in stanza 64 between different types of practitioners. The text points out that the great Tantra of the primordial Buddha places very specific, absolute guardrails on monastics. It warns, point blank, the celibate should never take the secret and prajna empowerments. See, these specific advanced empowerments involve elements that fundamentally contradict monastic vows, so they are strictly off-limits to celibate practitioners. While lay practitioners might be able to engage with them differently, for a celibate monk, the prohibition is absolute, no exceptions.
So what actually happens if a monk ignores this explicit warning? Stanzas 65 and 66 trace this tragic, step-by-step collapse. Step 1. The practitioner takes the forbidden empowerment, doing exactly what is prohibited. Step 2. This instantly causes their vows of discipline to be broken. Step 3. This results in incurring a downfall that is a defeat, total loss. And Step 4. The ultimate consequence, they fall into the lower realms. The fast track to enlightenment suddenly becomes this high-speed plunge into utter spiritual disaster. It's basically the ultimate spiritual HR violation. As Dipankara bluntly warns, accomplishment would elude them. Absolutely no way around it. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Fruits of the Path, and how to actually navigate all of this safely. After laying out those utterly terrifying consequences, Dipankara brings the narrative back to a balanced resolution. He tells us exactly what practitioners can do without incurring any fault, provided they've actually followed the correct procedures. Stanza 67 serves as a very clear safety checklist. If a practitioner wants to engage in advanced practices, like teaching or listening to any tantra or performing a fire puja or offering, they have to meet one of two strict requirements. They must either have properly received the master empowerment from the guru, or they must have profoundly known suchness. Remember that baseline meditation on emptiness we discussed at the very beginning? That's what this means. If you meet either of these requirements, the text assures us there's no fault. You are fully cleared to wield these powerful tools safely. To put a bow on all this, stanza 68 reveals the historical context of everything we've just unpacked. The elder Dipankara didn't just sit down and write this in a vacuum. He compiled it upon the supplication of Jungchup U, meaning a specific student asked for clarity, and Dipankara responded by summarizing vast, complex amounts of sutras and other dharma into this brief, incredibly potent explanation. He stripped away all the noise to deliver the essential framework of risks and rewards. In a way, Dipankara was writing an 11th century explainer, just like the one we're doing right now. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought to chew on. Dipankara's text lays out this incredibly clear premise. The faster and more powerful the vehicle, the more devastating the crash is going to be if you lack discipline or ignore the rules. In our modern era, we're constantly seeking life hacks. We want accelerated learning and instant access to the deepest knowledge possible. But if the most powerful shortcuts to enlightenment, or really any ultimate truth, require the strictest, most dangerous guardrails, how do we safely pursue absolute knowledge today? It's absolutely something to deeply consider as you seek out your own fast tracks. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.